अभी अभी रात बड़ी तेजाबी, गिर न जाए हाथ से चांद रकाबी। डूब रहे हैं सारे कुल किनारे, उमड़ घुमड़ के रात आई तेजाबी। बोलते बदन पे खोलते बदन पे, झलती उबलती ये रात, ये रात, ये रात, ये छड़ी की छिपकली रात, ये रात, ये कौड़ी और कुबरे की रात, ये रात। ना उगली ही जाए न निकली ही जाए ये काली जहरीली रात, पल 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 खाती पल पल उलझाती पल के झपकती ये रात। सन्नाटे की सेज पे सोई सांप सी सरकती ये रात, ये रात, ये रात। Wow! That's one evocative number, isn't it? Evocative, sly, and menacing. Just like the underlying tone of what I'll be sharing with you today. But first, let me welcome you all back, ladies and gents, boys and girls, dogs, cats, rabbits, and goldfish and bowls, to this latest episode of Tattle Tales. I'm Sangeeta Bahadur, and for those of you who are joining me for the first time, this is my new series of supernatural and bizarre stories from around the world, not to mention the ones based on the experiences of those of my family and friends who were and are on the same wavelength as otherworldly entities. That's how they manage sometimes to tune into their frequency, able to see and hear the shades. Why I don't dismiss these people as hyper imaginative cranks is because, although not in the same league at all, I have had a distant brush or two with the inexplicable, forcing me to admit that there are things that lie beyond our worldly ken. You've already heard my own weird ring story as a bonus in my very first episode, One Ring to Bring Them All. I may whisper a couple of others into your ears as we travel this spooky road together. So anyway, today's narration is based on the rather scary experience shared with us long years ago by one of my dad's colleagues, who was also a dear friend of his. Like my father, he was a complete rationalist, not at all prone to believing in abracadabra. When he told us, therefore, about this terrifying encounter from his college days in Allahabad, not even Papa was inclined to question its veracity. Besides, you only had to look into his eyes to realize that he was still haunted by the event even a couple of decades after it all happened. Unlike the previous stories I haven't borrowed the title of this one from a poem. I'm simply calling it A Knight's Tale. Knight beginning with an N and not a K, and tale spelled as T-A-I-L. You'll soon figure out why. Just like the story I told you before my Halloween special, which was called Beyond Life's Misty Maze, you remember? This one is also 100% accurate as far as the basics are concerned. I have only taken some poetic and comic license to spice it up in my own style. The author in me, as you know very well by now, simply cannot resist such opportunities. Uncle, as all the Indians here would know, we are raised to address all our parents' friends and acquaintances as uncle and auntie. So, as I was saying, uncle and his 3 male co-hostelers have been replaced by 4 lovely and spirited young women sharing a house. And Allahabad has become Pune. The hostel's canteen staff, going on a sudden strike, has been converted into the resident cook, unexpectedly proceeding on leave. I know while the real incident took place in the 1950s, I have brought it forward to the 1990s. Except for these and the addition of some very feminine bonding and hilarity, everything else that happened to Uncle and his friends on that unforgettable night has been reproduced faithfully. So, buckle up and prepare for the goosebumps to come. To add to the immediacy, the narration is in first person and some of it in the present tense, happening right here and now. So, here we go. 1, 2, 3, start. Is he still? I nod, staring out of the diamond-paned window at the gate across the garden. The elderly, dapper gentleman stands beyond it in the pelting rain, silhouetted against the lightning-slashed greyness of the monsoon sky. His eyes appear to glow eerily as he stares straight into mine, making me shiver. As before, the downpour leaves him untouched, sliding harmlessly off the precise creases of his sherwani and the embroidered mojris he wears on his feet to puddle on the brick driveway. The others moan. Oh, Tula begins to cry quietly. I go to sit with her and we all huddle together as we first did on that dawn 25 years ago. It's all right, I whisper, my eyes drifting to the massive carved wood of the locked door on the outside of which hangs the talisman, glowing a silvery blue in the gloom. He won't get through. Never has. Bless you, Mom. A fervent chorus seconds me as we clasp hands and recall the weird, disorienting night it all began. The four of us, bright, brash, and shamefully indulged offspring of rich dads who'd been friends forever, had been living together for just over 2 years by then. Having bonded literally across our cribs, since our mothers had obligingly produced us within weeks of each other, each of us regarded the other three as sisters from another mister, and shared everything from clothes, makeup, and books to gossip, crushes, and secrets. Once we had aced our 12th boards, we'd wheedled our way into moving away from the pretty but boring town of Ranchi, still the unofficial summer capital of an undivided Bihar, to quiet but hip Pune, or Pune, as it was called then. The parents, putty in our practiced hands, gladly agreed to pool resources and rent for us a picturesque bungalow in a quiet neighborhood. And we happily settled in to pursue our obligatory undergrad degree at the old and classy Ferguson College. Within a month, we were friends with everybody who was anybody in the under 25 world of the city, and had collected a legion of fervent admirers. They dutifully mooned over us, worked like dogs to organize our legendary parties, and could be counted on to fight for the privilege of carting around our books and shopping bags. The mainstay of this thrilling existence was our live-in maid, Chamkili, without whom we'd have literally starved in a pigsty, since we firmly believed that housework was potentially lethal. The cheerful mother of 2 teenagers, she had been persuaded by our mothers, and no doubt by the generous salary offered as compensation, to tear herself away from her extended Santhal family in a village near Ranchi and accompany us to Pune. She had become our cook, housekeeper, and general factotum rolled into one. She'd only go home when we headed to Ranchi over our summer, autumn, and winter breaks, and would return in time to join us on our journey back. The arrangement had so far worked like a charm. We never had to do without her in Pune, and she was never, as she confessed to us in a weak moment, forced to play the dutiful mother, wife, and daughter-in-law long enough to set her teeth on edge. Clearly, Chamkili was a woman who valued her independence and never hence sought to curtail ours. Imagine our consternation, therefore, when we returned that evening to find, tucked under the door, a note. An accepted form of communication in those pre-mobile days. Written in a semi-literate hand, it informed us that Chamkili, summoned by a peremptory telegram, helpfully enclosed with the note as evidence, announcing the illness of her mother-in-law, had been forced to catch the afternoon train chugging along in the general direction of Bihar. It might, she stated optimistically, drop her off somewhere in the vicinity of Ranchi, from where she'd board a bus or a truck or maybe a tractor home. If the old lady responded to ministrations and recovered, Chamkili would return in a fortnight. If, however, the Gorgon passed away with decent haste, as she hoped, it just might be sooner. This spelled disaster in capital letters. Who would clean the house, do the laundry, buy groceries, and field unwanted callers? And who, for God's sake, would feed us? Anxious inquiries revealed that the only one of us who had even a nodding acquaintance with cooking was Ria, who could toast bread. To our intense relief, she rose magnificently to the occasion. Now, don't any of you worry, she admonished us confidently, marching across the threshold with the rest of us following worshipfully in her wake. I've even boiled eggs around 5 years ago, true, but so what? It's really not rocket science, you know. And if you were all to chip in a bit, I could even be flipping pancakes before the week's out. I mean, who knows, right? A couple hours later, we stood panting in the kitchen, staring at one another in dismay, covered in flour, oil, sweat, and blood. Tula, having enthusiastically sliced her finger along with the onions she had valiantly undertaken to chop. So it is rocket science, Mishri muttered, bandaging the injury and glowering at the tornado-hit kitchen. Shame on you, Ria, for leading us down the garden path with visions of golden pancakes whirling through the air. Poor Tula. She'll now be rendered forever fingerless, and it's all your fault. Well, of all the unfair, prejudiced, irresponsible things to say, gasped Ria, flushed and outraged. How am I responsible? How am I to blame for some idiot's inability to figure out the difference between flesh and vegetable? Tula, a resident drama queen, protested this unfeeling statement by bursting into tears. Mishri, ever her champion, abandoned the first aid box to advance threateningly on Ria, who thrust her chin out in belligerent invitation. Galvanized by the fear of a screechy, hair-pulling contest and quite used to playing referee, I stepped between them with alacrity. Now, people, I cooed soothingly. No one's blaming anybody for anything. We are all tired, overwrought, and hungry, and feeling lost without our domestic goddess Chamkili. Ria, you did your best, but we really shouldn't have expected miracles on your first evening in the kitchen. Tula, turn off the taps. You have not been rendered fingerless, and you know that. Mishri, save the Tarantula Tansy act for later, damn it. What we need right now is good hot food, and the only way we are getting any tonight is if we go out and buy some. Sobs and growls instantly died away. 3 pairs of eyes goggled at me with identical expressions of disbelief. At, let me see, 11:45 in the night? Mishri queried suavely. Where do you think we are, babe? New York? In Pune, even the owls go to sleep at 9. This was, you understand, way back in the early 1990s, before liberalization introduced Indian cities and towns to malls, clubs, and all-night cafes. Not if you know where to go, I quipped, relaxing as estrogen levels around me simmered down. Remember the Hyderabadi takeout joint we went to last month after the rock concert with Srini and his symbiosis gang? Was it called Charminar? From what I remember, it's just 2 kilometers down the highway and stays open till well after midnight, I think. And the food is to die for. What an awesome idea, hiccuped Tula, dabbing at the lingering moisture in her eyes. I have Srini's phone number and I'll ask him to pop across and pick up. No, I interrupted firmly, feeling unaccountably feminist in that moment of trial. What a guy can do, girls can do better. We'll go get our own dinner on our own terms. But it's pouring out there, protested Mishri. Won't we get wet? If we choose to sing and dance in the rain, certainly, I retorted. I must confess that I was toying with the revolutionary idea of simply driving there. This is not a permanent solution, you know. Ria huffed, miffed at being so neatly supplanted in the kitchen. True, I smiled placatingly, but can you come up with a better stopgap arrangement? Just for tonight, of course. So, in perfect accord, once again, everyone rushed to wash and change. Within a record 10 minutes, we had piled into Ria's sunflower yellow Maruti Zen and were careering dangerously, she being a votary of the kamikaze approach to driving, down deserted, water-slicked roads. screeching to a dramatic halt in front of the brightly lit, isolated eatery, and it was indeed named Charminar. We took a moment to gape at the silver grey rolls gleaming wetly in the muddy lot, flanked by 3 enormous black Chevrolets. Silent shop hands were scurrying about, stashing the cavernous boots of the posh cars with large cartons redolent with the scent of succulent meats, fragrant rice, and saffron-induced desserts. Our stomachs growling in protest and our mouths watering appreciatively, we repressed our curiosity at this unexpected encounter with opulence and instead squelched our way to the counter. Before we could utter a word, though, the owner informed us brusquely that they were sold out for the day. For a moment, we simply stared uncomprehendingly at him. Tula was the first to recover from the blow. "Whatever do you mean?" she squealed, greatly insulted. "There's all that stuff on the shelves in these boxes, all sold." The man interrupted her, looking fidgety and refusing to meet her eyes. To the gentleman in the rolls, regular customer, every Friday of the whole month of July, we cook only for him. Pays double for the prerogative too. "Nonsense!" exclaimed Mishri, rendered militant by hunger. "I'm sure there's a law against such consumer monopoly. We have a fundamental right to food just like he does." The unmoved shopkeeper merely shrugged, ignoring us totally, until he tuned into our whispered conversation. We were discussing the propriety of appealing directly to the sense of fairness of the evidently well-heeled customer in the rolls, seeing as how he himself, the shopkeeper, was being so uncooperative. I had rarely seen a man become so agitated so fast. "No!" he hissed fiercely, scurrying around the counter to bar our way, his eyes frantic. "Please, ladies, don't even think of doing that. You have no idea. He's not. Just leave him alone. Go home and make yourself some sandwiches or something. I know my biryani is irresistible and my salan has often inspired poetry, but even they are not worth this. Trust me." Startled by his vehemence, we nearly backed off. Till Ria recalled that had there been any bread at home in the first place, she'd simply have toasted some for us in a blinding display of culinary expertise. Our wavering resolve strengthened by this disclosure, we proceeded to ignore the frenzied shop owner. Striding across the parking lot, we tapped firmly on the dark glass of the Rolls passenger seat. It rolled down to reveal a distinguished gentleman in his 60s, perhaps early 70s, we couldn't be quite sure, dressed with impeccable, if old-fashioned, elegance. In an embroidered black sherwani and fez cap. He listened bemusedly but kindly to the deeply moving rendition of our distress story and raised a politely disdainful eyebrow at our offer to pay for some of the food that he was carrying in the boots of his cars. "It's not about the money, my dears," he informed us gently, and we blushed with the belated realization of the sheer impertinence of our suggestion. This man could obviously buy every restaurant in town without his bank manager so much as noticing the difference. "I'm hosting my annual party, you see," he continued patiently, thankfully more amused than offended by our youthful presumption. "And I cannot spare a morsel, I'm afraid. This food is strictly for my guests. A matter of principle, you'd appreciate." He sounded sympathetic, his keen eyes observing a mournful look of hollow-eyed hunger. I sighed, preparing to apologize and retreat, for what else was there for us to do? But he suddenly chuckled, making me blink. "However," he continued, twinkling benevolently and lifting a restraining hand, "I do have a solution, provided you lovely young ladies can trust a man your grandfather's age." Leaning back in the plush leather seat, he surveyed each of us in turn. "Why don't you simply come home with me for dinner, eh? Once you become my guests, my hospitality would be naturally yours to command." We gaped at him, taken aback by the unexpected turn the conversation had taken. "My humble residence," he waved reassuringly in a generally southwestern direction, "is fairly close by, as Bilal, the shopkeeper there, will confirm. Leave your car here by all means. I'll have you dropped back whenever you say the word." That is, of course, if you agree, all of you, to accept my invitation. Please understand that there is no compulsion. Incidentally, in case you are wondering, I'm Nawab Shehbaz Khan, and I have lived here, well, he chuckled, forever. Our intrepid disregard for conventions didn't usually extend to accompanying strange men of whatever age home. But we were starving, wet, and exhausted from our unprecedented culinary exertions. Plus, the man was a Nawab, for God's sake. How much more respectable could you get? And as ancient as Methuselah. The cars were unbelievably lavish, and most importantly, we were just 20 and therefore naturally invulnerable. So, after an intense mutual consultation that lasted all of 30 seconds, we graciously accepted the invitation to join the party. Murmuring a suave "Khush Aamdeed," welcome, our newly acquired host waved us into the Chevrolet right behind his car. The turbaned and gloved driver deferentially opened the door for us and bowed us in, making us feel like princesses going to a ball. The Nawab had been right about the distance, and within minutes, an opulent Haveli sprang at us out of the gloom. Set within a loop in the road that none of us had ever noticed before, even though we had driven down this way at least a score of times. Reassuringly, the Haveli, sprawling across acres of lush, rain-washed gardens, festooned with fairy lights and riddled with tinkling fountains, was bursting at the seams with impossibly chic people in linens, chiffons, and jewels, laughing, chatting, clinking glasses, dancing. Shehbaz Khan, evidently the most popular of hosts, was hailed enthusiastically on all sides. We were given polite once-overs by everybody as we followed a bit timorously in his expansive wake. We were excruciatingly conscious of the now bedraggled state of our street chic casuals, feeling like a quarrel of crows infiltrating a flock of peacocks. He led us through the throng towards a group of young people in their late teens and 20s, all incredibly good-looking, faultlessly turned out in ethnic designer wear, sporting posh accents and flawless manners. Graciously introducing us to them, he left us in their willing care. The first few minutes were somewhat awkward. Completely out of our depth amidst the glitterati, we arrived at the silent consensus that it had probably been a mistake to give in so readily to the urgings of our stomachs. Our flatteringly attentive new friends, however, soon soothed away our misgivings. Fluffy white towels were whipped out of thin air and we were offered a change of clothing. Fine linen kurtas with Lucknowi chicken curry, paired with flaring trousers of the sort we'd only ever seen in period films, apparently called shararas, both of which we accepted with alacrity. By we, I essentially mean the other three. Unaccountably, I felt a strong, though fleeting, urge to cling to my wet things, till Ria hooked an arm through mine and pulled me into the changing room, and the moment passed. All right then, don't you think this is the perfect point, the perfect crest of suspense and curiosity at which to leave you guys today, so as to encourage you to come back for the next part of this truly amazing and hair-raising tale. I know you've all missed me a lot since I've been away from the camera, from the channel for almost a month now, yeah? Because as I said, after 4 continuous weeks of telling you the crazy Halloween story that I'd heard from my Iranian friend, I thought I deserved a break. Plus, I was away in London visiting my daughter, and I just wanted to take it easy. But now we are back on schedule, and it will be the first and the third Friday of every coming week, where I'll be coming to you with either a new story or the continuation of the previous one. I hope you're enjoying this storytelling. You're enjoying the experiences I'm sharing with you. This one, as I said, is very real, and I'm reproducing it word for word, except for changing the situation and the characters. So do keep coming back, and if you are enjoying the stories I'm telling, if you're enjoying discovering a different aspect of this world we live in, a very mysterious aspect, I must say, a spiritual one as well, do like my channel, which very few of you seem to be doing, although many more come and watch. It doesn't take very much time, just go on the thumbs up sign, press it, so that YouTube knows that you are enjoying whatever you're listening to. And apart from that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, to share the contents with all your friends and family and anybody you know who enjoys these slightly scary and goosebumpy kind of stories that I'm telling here at the moment. So I will see you next in a couple of weeks' time on the 3rd Friday of December. Wait for the denouement and come back for your fortnightly fun, shall we say. In the meanwhile, take a lot of care of yourselves and have a great fortnight, and I'll see you soon. Bye.